Apple Bloom walked up to the large, imposing barn before her. She wasn't often allowed to be out on the farm past sunset, but tonight was different. Tonight was special. The yearling continued on to the gable-roofed building, guided only by the crepuscular night of the light of the barest of summer of a waiting moon. She hadn't been out on the farm at midnight for a very long time, and despite her imitated familiarity with every rock, tree, and root, this world seems a bit off and unknown to her. The trees didn't seem to move in the wind. In the distance, an apple fell off a branch and landed on a dry leaf, and then she jumped. "Ah, come now and get a hold of yourself, Apple Bloom," she said to herself. "Ain't nothing to be afraid out here, just 'cause it's dark." She steeled herself and carried on towards the barn doors, knocking when she arrived. "Come on in, sis," a cheery Applejack replied from inside, and Apple Bloom pulled on the large wooden door open, enough to slide through. "Close it behind ya." She heard her in the darkness within, and then she followed in her instructions. "Why do you all get so dark in here, AJ? You know this isn't safe working." She furrowed her brow, trying to make anything in the midnight barn. "This ain't safe work," came a whisper in her left ear. Apple Bloom shrieked and then tripped on her side. Her voice and she laughed heartily, and a hoof offered her to help her up. "That ain't funny, AJ. What am I doing out here? What are you doing out here in the middle of the night? Put this on." A pile of fabric smacked Apple Bloom lightly on the face, and then she sighed and tried to figure out what exactly she was going to be wearing. After struggling for a few minutes, hearing only the scuffle as Applejack slunk mysteriously around the room, she finally figured out that it was only a hooded cloak, and just as her eyes adjusted to what the light could get on, she figured that it was just as black as the room she was in. "You still didn't answer my question," she pouted. "I told you to come out here in the middle of the night because of this nightmare night, Apple Bloom. And there ain't traditions in this family you've yet been told. You got the cloak on, right?" Apple Bloom mulled over the answer again given, wondering what the tradition, and she somehow had only been kept out of the loop on, but had been avoiding her prying eyes and ears over the years. "Oh, I think so. But I can't see a darn thing to tell you. All you could do is complain. One more minute and there'll be some light." Apple Bloom flopped onto her flank, still waiting for the next heavy wooden doors. For all that she could see after being in the dark, Applejack had some mess on the floor, and she was busily moving a pile of something into literal flash. A match was then struck, and Apple Bloom flinched away from the sudden light. "A little warning next time, please." "Oh, Forey," muffled the reply back. Apple Bloom turned back with the newly adjusted eyes and blinked. Applejack was moving slowly as star formation, lighting candles set in a round circle with symbols. "Applejack, what's that?" Apple Bloom said, her voice now a monotone and her eyes wide open. "This Earth Pony named Magic," she replied, lighting the last of her candle before stomping the match out. "Sorry, this is Earth Pony named Magic, Apple Bloom, and you're old enough to learn what it is and why we do it." She then turned and looked at her sister, her orange face beaming with pride beneath the shadow of her hood. "And I'm old enough to teach you like Granny taught me." She and her paw taught her. "Applejack, what's that? I don't like it." Apple Bloom slowly shifted away in the circle and then scuffled on the dirt floor of the barn. Within this circle was the ring of Elderich symbols, gleaming red in the candlelight. Within that was a pictogram of... She wasn't sure. It looked like a bit more of Discord's silhouette, but where the horns are wrong. What is this made out of, AJ? Oh, worry not, sister o' mine. It's a paint we used for the side of each barn. This brought a little bit of relief to Apple Bloom, but she still felt strange, staring in the strange glyphs before her. Oh, okay, all right. Are you playing a joke on me, AJ? AJ, Applejack brought her hood down and sat next to her sister. The proud smile came off of her face as she looked at Apple Bloom with concern and love. It ain't no joke, though I suppose it may all felt like one, but you all need to know what it is and what to go through. And we do it every year until I can't, and you can teach it to the next generation of the Sweet Apple Acres family. I'm sorry I haven't been talking to your concerns seriously. She then looked out of the circle before her, and the dancing shadows casted on the candles. I've been doing this for far too long, and I guess I forgot how I first felt it too. Apple Bloom then leaned against her sister, feeling the familiar warmth that came through her cloaks. Oh, I forgive ya. Now tell me what it is. You know we haven't had a bad year on this farmer as long as any of us can remember. Well, kinda. What about a few years back, though? We didn't have as good as a harvest as usual. No, but we still had a harvest. Mother Nature just has her part to play. But well, this tradition is why we never gone hungry. And the apple trees never outgrow their roots and fall. Why during dry years we never get a lightning strike? What do we have a deal? A deal, Apple Bloom repeated, staring hauntingly at the circle. With who, Applejack? I don't know, and I don't think it's liable to tell us, nor that it's good to know for all that matter. Then why do we do it? Because the coast is cheap and it keeps our family safe. Come here, sis. Applejack removed the circle and back of the barn and then pulled a sheet of burlap onto a pile. In it was a white rabbit, hopping silently around a small critter trap. The mare ducked over behind the pile and picked up something in her mouth before turning to face Apple Bloom. Applejack, is that a knife? She then mumbled a reply came. She then sat down before Apple Bloom. Just like when I learned when you get to do this part. I'll do the talking for now, but Granny and I will get to taught you on how to speak the words soon enough. Pick up the knife, Apple Bloom, and sit next to the middle of the circle facing me. Cautiously, Apple Bloom did as she was told. The knife felt very heavy in her mouth. The strange blade twisted and decorated. She felt that there was more to this than metal in utensil she held. She gingerly stepped into the circle, careful not to disturb any of the guts, and then she sat down upon the painted goat's mouth. Applejack then came over to her then, the rabbit still dangling from her mouth. She then sat it down gently between the goat's eyes and then held it down. She caught Apple Bloom's eye and stared intently. Hold this here by its neck. It'll mess and scratch, but we don't want to let it hop away. Good. When you hear me say, "Oh no," plunge this knife into its chest, through the dirt. Can you do that, Apple Bloom? Look at me. Can you do this? Her bottom lip quivered a bit as she contemplated the rush of information. This isn't Fluttershy's rabbit, is it? Hey, don't you worry. We always can catch a wild one. You can do that? The yearling then looked down at the creature beneath its hoof. It squirmed helplessly. She thought of home and family and a seriousness in her sister's eyes, and honestly she presented. I can do it, yes. Thank you, Apple Bloom. Applejack then turned to the top of the circle, and then threw her hood back on. Hotsessa, she then began, and then the room suddenly turned into a completely pitch black, save for the two ponies in the circle. Tibi note onum, she then continued. A glow of the red paint pulsed in time just for coincidence. Familiae nostre totum. The paint then now pulsate to Apple Bloom's heartbeat. Cold sweat overcame her, and felt as if she had all heat and from the hot fall weather had been sucked out of existence. Severe and natto. Hearing her keywords, Applebloom dove her head down towards the rabbit, plunging the knife until it hit flesh. It screamed. It was horrible, the endless shriek overcoming Applebloom's ears. It went on as she too shouted in pain, as the ears throbbed along with the glow around her. And then there was silence. A small pool of blood flowed from the rabbit, but seeped into the ground when the goat eyes like rainfall on sand. Applebloom then watched as the rabbit mummified before her. She watched as the skin vanished into dust. She watched as the skeleton broke down into dirt before her. The goat eyes pulsed one final time, and then the light came back onto the world. Applebloom then just stood there shaking, realizing that the knife was still in her mouth. She re-itched it and then stepped back, collapsing to haunches. Applebloom walked over to her, kicking the painted symbols out as she did so. "That's it, dear. You did well." I did?" She couldn't believe it. It just felt wrong. She also felt the warmth of her sister, and the candles and all of her light, and another sense entirely. She realized that she had just felt it. Whenever she stepped on the foot into the acreage, she had always thought that it was the feeling of home. She supposed now that it was her home that supplied them comfort, but not in the way she would have expected. "You did, sis. Now, come on now. Help me clean this up," Applejack said softly, blowing out the candles.